The 49ers on Thursday Night Football had an abysmal performance against the Rams. They failed. Honestly, both teams really did not play that well. The game really started off with Matthew Stafford like trying to throw interceptions to the 49ers, even hitting like Hufanga in the chest on a pass that should have been intercepted. But I mean, poor Hufanga's got the club on his hand, so he couldn't even catch the ball.
Just bounced right off him.
I have seen players, with a club on their hand make interceptions before, but like I honestly understand. I don't think I could do it too. But yeah, I mean, the final score was 12-6, and the 49ers even got outscored this week by the Raiders, And I mean, one thing I don't understand is that the 49ers are going to be one of the last teams to ever get a brand new stadium that's going to be an outdoor stadium, and yet they play horribly every single time in the rain. This isn't even just a Brock Purdy thing. Like people, all right, Brock Purdy, yes, he plays poorly in the rain, but literally the 49ers have played horribly under Kyle Shanahan in the rain. And he refuses. They've asked him about it in press conferences, about do they prepare differently for rain? And, he has said, no, he doesn't prepare differently. He doesn't put water on the balls. He doesn't believe in that. And like, to me, it's just how many times do you have to play bad in the rain before you do something different? Come on. Okay. So now the 2024 season, that was the game, that was the most important game of the year. And now this season, it's like like a less than 1% chance that the 49ers can, make the playoffs now. So, I mean, it's unofficially over for the 49ers this year. And it's unofficially over for Deebo Samuel. He literally put the target on his back this week by saying, I'm not struggling. I'm just not getting targets, or I'm not getting the ball. And then he goes into this game and, I'll pull up his stats, but there's one play in the game where the 49ers probably should have scored a touchdown. And, it just bounces off his chest, off his hands, and it's like, I like Deebo, but as this season has gone on, he is this season one of my least favorite players on the team. Just really, it all started with like, the whole Tabor Pepper thing. And then also, I think I mentioned like during draft, like once the 49ers drafted Pearsall, I think I had a reaction where I was like, if they can keep Ayuk and Pearsall and trade Deebo, I would be ecstatic. And that's just because like, I didn't think that there was a need for having a player like Deebo Samuel after they traded for McCaffrey and now that you added another receiver. But I mean, the regression has just been crazy. And it honestly, like, I don't know, Mike, maybe we'll kind of talk more about it when we start talking about like the Brock Purdy contract rumors. But, do you think that it is a pattern? Do you think that it has more to do with the individual players themselves? Because Ayuk did not have a strong training camp, going into the season. And, Deebo Samuel seemed to have a solid training camp going in, Ricky Pearsall hasn't been a huge factor. Really, the only pass catchers for the 49ers who have really made an impact have been Juwan Jennings and George Kittle. Do you think that there is anything to be said about the correlation between the receiver struggles and Brock Purdy? Because that's three of their top receivers,
Right.
Ayuk obviously with the injury, but yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head goes, is like it feels like, all right, the top receiver, Ayuk, got injured pretty early on this year. Kittle has been a monster this season. He's back to, I'd say, his old self. Like, he's playing like he's in his prime still, which he is.
Yeah.
And then Pearsall, I would say the struggles for him dates back to not being able to really practice much in training camp. and
Yeah. Being
it,
banged up and then, getting shot.
yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
So he had a shortened preseason, really. So it was going to be a slow ramp up for him regardless. And I mean, he hasn't been all too impressive, but he's a rookie. Like he can still figure that out. And then I just think with Debo, he just looks like a guy that's washed. Like I don't think I can blame Purdy for him. I don't
Mm.
even think I could blame Shanahan for him. Like Debo kind of tried to blame one of the two, if not both of them, for not feeding him more. And then what happens? He goes out there and he's dropping all the passes and just looks cooked, you know?
Well,
Like,
I can blame Shanahan in terms of this. Debo clearly has not been playing up to his standard,
right.
and you know, essentially the same mistake that they made in the Super Bowl was the same mistake that they made against the Rams. They were trying to feature Debo a little bit too much. And you know what's insane to me? All right, so like the Rams with, the Rams went to Cooper Cup like 3 times on like the first drive or two, and then
Mm.
after that they got away from him the whole rest of the game. All right, Cooper Cup, it's not working going there, so they went somewhere else, you know? And then the Rams decided to run the ball a lot more. They were pretty balanced, I would say. I might be getting the exact numbers wrong, because it's been a couple days now, but I remember hearing it was like 34 rushes and 31 passes that the Rams had. And then the 49ers had, significantly more passes than they did rushes, you know?
Mm.
And so maybe that has to do with, Debo Samuel being inefficient and Isaac Guerrero, also playing on that, he's got like a foot sprain and maybe they didn't want to push it there. But Shanahan is notorious for being the coach that will like run running backs into the ground. He has like a different leading rusher. If you look back at every single season on the 49ers, there's a different guy almost every season who has the most rushing yards on the team. And
Yeah.
that's true this year too, because this year, what is probably Jordan Mason? Jordan Mason probably has the most rushing yards on the team this year because McCaffrey didn't play for most of the year. Last
Yeah.
year was McCaffrey. The year before might have been McCaffrey, but it could have been that it was Elijah Mitchell or even who did they trade to Miami? Jeff Wilson Jr. They still had
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson Jr. on the team. So yeah, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. The Niners did not come to play against the Rams. Brock Purdy was 14 of 31, 142 yards and an interception. The interception was not good. It was, there was a rusher, pass rusher coming right for Purdy, and Purdy just kind of tosses it up, in the end zone for Juwan Jennings. And it was like 2nd and 11. They're driving down the field. They only need a field goal to tie the game. I know you don't want to put the ball into Jake Moody's hands in order to win the game, or else Debo might find himself saying more stuff and putting his hands on Tabor Pepper again. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's Purdy's still technically young, but I think that's probably a play that he would want back, and I hope that he'll learn from going forward. I think he will learn from it because he actually takes things seriously, unlike Jimmy Garoppolo did. Jimmy never learned. Jimmy would make the same mistakes over and over and would never learn. But I don't know. I get a different work ethic vibe from Brock Purdy, but I could be wrong, but I feel very strongly about that. But in terms of rushing in this game, Isaac Guerrero had 16 carries for 57 yards, which is not ideal. The 49ers could not really run the ball effectively in this game, but they didn't necessarily commit to it like they should have in a rain game where you're struggling. You're struggling to pass. Like Purdy completed less than half of his throws. So really, it was just a poor performance all around. Deebo Samuel had 2 carries for 3 yards. I'm really glad that he, went to Twitter with his frustrations. And let's see. You know what's really funny about that though is that all right, he ended up deleting the tweet, but he didn't delete it in time for like the community notes to like say, yeah, Deebo actually is struggling. He leads the team in drops. I've never seen that before. You know what I mean?
That's crazy. Yeah.
I've never ever seen any player get community noted when calling out their team on social media in any sport. So, yeah, so that was fun. Unlike the game, but
no touchdown scored. The Niners defense was doing good at least. It's just,
yeah,
especially the first half, like they shut everything down. It's just the offense couldn't get it going.
We haven't even touched on like the big headline from the game,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I almost forgot about it. But
yeah,
so Kittle had another great game. He had 4 receptions for 61 yards. It's 15.2 yards per catch. I don't know why he and Jennings are not getting the ball more. They're literally every single time you throw it or every single time you connect with Kittle and Jennings on a pass. Jennings had 2 catches, 31 yards, so 15.5, Jennings did have a drop in the game, I remember. But I mean, still, Jennings and Kittle are your only 2 good receivers this year. Everyone else is not helping. Garendo was involved in the passing game a little bit. He had 4 receptions, 18 yards. Deebo, like I think I mentioned already, 3 catches, 16 yards. And Pearsall, 1 catch for 16. And Pearsall had all right, this was another bad throw by Purdy. And this is really like one of my big complaints about Brock Purdy is that I just don't know if he has the arm strength to really, fit the ball into, like, all right, if this opening is only going to be open for a split second and you really need to thread the needle, I just don't know if Brock Purdy can really thread the needle consistently down the field. Whereas a quarterback like Justin Herbert can do, like Patrick Mahomes, can do, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen consistently does. Ricky Pearsall is like practically wide open, and Purdy throws a lob pass over the top, and it sails over to the left. Where if he just throws it more over the middle and leads Pearsall into it, it's a touchdown probably, or at least a big gain at very least. But yeah, I mean, that's just something that I've noticed, and I think other fans have noticed. Like Pia's dad and I talk about it all the time, where it's like, why isn't, we just don't know if he can throw those bullet passes down the field. We haven't seen it really. Purdy can throw deep. In my opinion, he can throw deep, and he's actually pretty accurate. But like, they're almost always floaters. So luckily, I mean, for a guy who throws the ball, for a guy who throws so many like lob passes and touch passes rather than, really zipping it, I think he gets intercepted a lot less than a quarterback who normally, doesn't have the arm strength to compensate for it would. Like Purdy doesn't, I think, get intercepted as much as I would expect for a quarterback like that. And I think that's a testament to, how smart he is and how he's able to throw the anticipation. But, like Mike mentioned earlier, the defense really stepped up in this game, and Dre Greenlaw returned from his Achilles injury, and he was great.
He looked great. He was stopping the run, like especially in the first half, dude. Every time I have Kyren Williams on my fantasy team, so every time I would see him hit the hole, I'd be like, "Oh my god!" And then boom, 57, just tackles him. I'm like, bro, all right. Like I couldn't even be mad. I was like, that's cool for Dre Greenlaw. Like the fact that he's back less than a year after rupturing his Achilles, he looked good.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. And I mean, I think I heard it from Grant, on his stream, I mean, it was one of the more impressive performances after, post Achilles for an athlete. But he's, Grant said that he saw Dre Greenlaw after the game, like, barely able to walk, like just kind of like limping. And Dre Greenlaw did eventually, I think, get hurt in this game, and he needed to come out. And they asked another player to come in his place, in Devondre Campbell. And Devondre Campbell said, "No, nah, I'm good." And then so I guess John Lynch came down to the field, and this is how Jay Glazer put it, was John Lynch came down to the field and sent Campbell to the locker room.
Huh.
And I guess the way they described it on, like, Fox Sports was like, yeah, you always want to be talking to John Lynch, not 47 Red, like the safety, John Lynch.
Oh yeah, yes,
yeah,
yes.
Because they're like, John. Yeah, that's two different people. So
yeah,
I mean, I didn't see it happen, but the way they described it, like, good for John Lynch, like, to kick Campbell off the sideline, because I mean, the way the players were talking about it after the game, Charvarius Ward was very upset about it. George Kittle was very disappointed, and really, how tone deaf can you be? Like, I mean, if you watched other people talk about it, like, I mean, this has been one of the big talking points, even in national media. Like, they've been talking about it on First Take, and they even had an update about it on First Take today, about Campbell being suspended, which I'm glad that they did.
That's the
I'm
right
very
move.
glad that yep.
Yes.
Because it seemed like they were going to outright cut him from the team, but I'm glad that they suspended him instead, because if they cut him from the team, he would be getting the rest of, like, his game checks for the rest of the year, or, the rest of his contract, and he would be able to sign with another team, so, like,
he would have won.
Yeah. So imagine Campbell gets cut by the 49ers. The Niners have to pay him, to essentially, like, I mean, he just sent, like, the biggest middle finger to them in the middle of the game, and they have to pay him to leave, and then him probably sign with Detroit next week, who is banged up all over their defense. Yeah. And then, hey, he'll play against the Niners in 2 weeks. Oh, you don't think I'm that good?
Yeah.
And then he'll go on to the NFC Championship game and, this and that. Instead, the 49ers, I think they did the right thing. Like, sometimes you need to make an example in order to establish a boundary between, like, what the players can get away with and what they can't get away with. And I feel like this season they've done a poor job of establishing that boundary, because, like we saw with the Ayuk contract negotiation, Ayuk essentially did everything in his power to not want to be on the 49ers. He made a list of teams that he would play, he would love to play with. And, essentially, like, he just wanted to be paid. And, the 49ers essentially, they messed up. They rewarded him for, throwing his tantrums on social media, but they also, I think it was a similar situation, I think, with Debo, but not, I mean, to Debo's credit, he didn't really, put it out there to the extent that Ayuk did. I just remember Debo requesting a trade, Debo holding out, him being at the club saying he doesn't want to be on the team. He wasn't, like, so public like Ayuk was, but yeah, so essentially it was a good move for the Niners, I think, to make an example that that's unacceptable in their locker room, in terms of the Devondre Campbell situation. But, like, because you have players like Ricky Pearsall, who got shot this year and came back to play. Ricky Pearsall almost lost his life. Charvarius Ward, unfortunately, his, I think, 1-year-old, daughter passed away, and he's fighting to come back. I know you're laughing about something else.
It's
something on,
not laughing about that. Come on.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Trent Williams Trent Williams also, experienced a tragedy. I think his wife delivered a stillborn baby, and Trent Williams is also fighting through his injury, and he's fighting to try and come back and help his team. And then Devondre Campbell gets upset that the team that he signed with, because they needed a linebacker to replace the guy who tore his Achilles. This is all alleged, that this is probably his motivation. I don't know for a fact that this was his motivation, but I have a pretty good idea that it's because Dre Greenlaw came back. Campbell got benched, in favor of Dre Greenlaw. And Greenlaw played great. He played great. He got banged up. D. Winters got banged up. And then the 49ers were down to Demetrius Flannigan-Fowles, who also played banged up. They were down to 2 linebackers. Warner, who's also playing on a fractured ankle, Warner's been playing on a fractured ankle since week 4, Mike. Did you know that?
I did not. I want to say, I don't know if it was this game or last week's game, he got hurt for like one play and he came out, but then he came right back in. I think it was this game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I didn't know that it was a fracture. Is it? I mean, obviously he can play on it, so it's not like major, but that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he said that they shoot him up, for the pain. But yeah, like to me, it just reminds me of like the Terrell Owens, and in Madden, that like Madden clip where like, oh my God, he came back into the game and he's like limping.
Yeah.
Didn't Terrell Owens also play on like, a broken leg or like a fractured leg in real life too?
He either had a broken leg or a torn ACL, and he played in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's crazy. But hey, it's the Super Bowl. You might never get that opportunity in your life.
Yeah.
So
my thing with Devondre Campbell is like, all right, like you mentioned, like they were down to what, 2 linebackers, like just him and Warner.
Well, him and Flannigan-Fowles did, I think, play through. I mean, he was also banged up too.
Yeah. But point being, like, the Niners needed him. And what actually, like, obviously I'm a Raider fan. Like, I'm not the type to get mad about something like this, but I actually was a little flustered by it because I'm like, all right, season's on the line. This is the biggest game of the year.
Yeah.
And they're calling his number. Hey, man, get out there. We need you. And he's like, nah. Dude.
Yeah.
Like, that's
a must-win game. But honestly, like, has this not been the pattern with this team? Like, they've been in a collection of talent that they necessarily didn't they never really got together as a team, I feel like, because I mean, the most blatant example, which I will go back to multiple times, and if you're tired of hearing about it, I'm so sorry, but the Deebo Samuel, Tabor Pepper, Jake Moody incident, that's not a guy that looks like he's got somebody else's back, and then the head coach takes the side of the aggressor, of Deebo. Deebo was the one who initiated that, that. And then the coaches, Tabor Pepper overreacted. Oh, really? When did Tabor Pepper put his hands on Deebo? If he had, he would have been gone. So I don't know. This team has just like they're lacking that cohesion that they had in years prior, and maybe getting rid of like a veteran. Like they did Eric Armstead this offseason also, like, maybe they're missing a little bit of leadership, because say what you want about Eric Armstead on the field, players looked up to him in the locker room, so I don't know. I didn't understand, like, I understand moving on from Eric Armstead, the player, but it just didn't make sense at the time with like the contract, and they essentially had to pay him to leave. And now the 49ers have a weakness at defensive line. Like,
Oh, I saw a
It
report that they're likely going to cut Hargrave after the season.
probably. And then
That's
I think that's like a situation where they're going to let Hargrave essentially seek out like, free agency, and
mm,
he'll probably be gone. And then, I don't know if the 49ers will have the ability to, match or try to get him at a lower cap number. But really I don't know, but it just wasn't the right fit, I think, Hargrave, because the Eagles don't run the wide nine, and so the Niners were essentially like, or at least the Eagles at that time didn't run the wide nine. I don't know if they do right now, but the 49ers run the wide nine. So there is a lot of one-on-one pass rush, or a lot of double teams that the defensive line has to, fight through. And Javon Hargrave played very well on the Eagles when he was able to do one-on-one pass rush. You know, he
mm.
he was able to beat defensive, offensive linemen, one-on-one, and it's a lot different when he's not necessarily a great run defender. He's more of a pass rush specialist. So it was just like a square peg in a round hole, It wasn't necessarily the right fit. So, I mean, I hope he does good. If he moves on with another team, that's fine. But yeah, I do want to get to a couple comments. Or I do want to get to the comments, I guess, before we move on, because really, there's nothing much else to say about the Rams game other than just the Niners blew it and they were bad. I should have known. Like, I even thought to text Mike, hey, I might pick the Rams here if it starts, if it's going to rain tonight.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to go with 49ers, and it freaking cost me. Frank says, here to take my whooping. Yeah, Frank, I think, with the Raider flag there, or I guess the Pirate flag, but, we know what it is.
Yeah.
Let's see. Frank says, Shibo Spaniel has been a selfish dog, and Pyle allows it, tolerates it, and feeds into it. Yeah, I mean, essentially, like that situation, I really felt like, Shanahan did the wrong thing by taking Debo's side. If anything, you stay neutral, or you just try to change the subject. We're working on it, behind closed doors, or it's already been handled. We talked to both players. They were able to find common ground. Instead, it was, yeah, I think Tabor Pepper overreacted. Like, dude, all right, whatever. Joel says, what's up? Joel, thank you for, coming back, sharing your comments. Frank says, Niners defense was exceptional, held them to 12 points and no touchdown. What more can you ask for? Yeah, it's funny because I have been very critical of Nick Sorensen, but I mean, could it be that maybe Nick Sorensen is okay or fine as the defensive coordinator? He just didn't have, the right personnel for it. Because, I mean, the Rams offense just put up like 40 something on the Bills the week before. Well, it was against the Bills, right? Or was it the Lions? Let's see. Rams.
The Bills.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was the Bills. And so they had just put up like 40 something points on the Bills. And, then they come against the Niners, and the Niners played so aggressively on defense. I was proud of them, honestly. They played their ass off, and the offense didn't show up. But yeah, I mean, Dre Greenlaw coming back, Hufanga coming back, that defense actually resembled like what they're supposed to look like,
Yep.
And then towards the end of the game, they didn't have the personnel. All the linebackers are injured. One just walked off the field. He's going to go clear his locker and, essentially give a big middle finger to the whole rest of the team. Yeah. It's not the Niners season this year. It just wasn't. We had I guess I'm not the only person who was saying it, but I do believe, the Super Bowl hangover is a real thing. And the 49ers experienced it this year. Really. That's what it feels like. This feels like the 2020 season again. Jesus M tuning in says, didn't fans not want to see Campbell on the field before the incident? Yeah, I mean, I'm fully willing to acknowledge Devondre Campbell has not played well this season, and I like D Winters a lot better, but D Winters wasn't available once he got injured. It's like it was Devondre Campbell or nobody, and instead it was, all right, Flanagan Fowles, you gotta go back out there because you're not 100% healthy, but you're healthier than the other guys in front of you. So, yeah. Let's see. What's the big deal? Campbell wasn't going to make a play anyways. I mean, it's not that he wasn't going to make a play. Like, Campbell was making plays here and there. It's just he would he's just too slow, But having Devondre Campbell is better than having a player that, doesn't necessarily have a lot of playing time this year, really being on the field a lot. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of Flanagan Fowles this year. He's been on the team, but to my understanding, he's been more of a special teams guy. So once you start getting people out of place in positions where they don't have all the repetition, they're not used to it. Like it's like in the Super Bowl, George Odom, once Dre Greenlaw went down, George Odom, or what? No, Oren Burks. I think it was Oren Burks. Had to step in, and we saw a completely different ball game after that. They literally went to that weakness. And so while I don't think Campbell was really that great, and I really wanted to see less of him, it's because I wanted to see more of D Winters at the time. And I guess more of Dre Greenlaw now that he's back from, the Achilles injury. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, somebody having a teammate to have your back, I think is priceless, like at least try. And you just say you don't want to try and you suit up for the game, taking away a roster spot for somebody who could have been trying, the 49ers, the coaches, the players, they all thought that they could rely on him, and he turned their back.
If he's throwing a hissy fit because Dre Greenlaw came back, like, why didn't he ask to get cut weeks ago? Like, you knew this was coming. So I don't know why on primetime football you decide to do that during the game, third quarter. Like, that's just, yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't look good on Campbell. It doesn't look good on the 49ers. Doesn't look good on Shanahan. I'm very critical of Shanahan sometimes. This happened on his watch,
Yeah.
I wonder if he even knew that it happened, during the game, or if he's just like his head's so buried in his play sheet that like they had to tell him after the game, hey, not Dan Campbell, Devondre Campbell, he actually went into the locker room. Oh yeah? Oh, hold on. You gotta.
Yeah.
It's just like freaking. Well, you would think he would memorize that stupid ass playbook by now,
You would think.
With how much he just buries his face into it.
Regardless, it looks bad on the team. Like, it looks like, I know it's one guy. Like, this really does just feel like one guy being kind of a dipshit in Devondre Campbell. But at the same time, like, it feels like a team. Like, it's not fair to put it on the rest of the team. It's not fair to put it on, the guys that were out there post-game talking to the press, pissed off. George Kittle, Charvarius Ward, and probably every other teammate. They're probably all pissed off about it, but it's just a bad look for a team that clearly post-game is out of the playoffs, But again, the biggest thing to me is, like, during the game, third quarter, it's a one-possession game. You were down at most 6, but probably 3 at that point. Like, That's just bad. Like, I think when Vontae Davis retired at halftime for the Bills, it was like that might have been the Nathan Peterman game. I could be wrong, but the game where like Peterman threw 5 picks, and I wouldn't blame a player for being like, "Yeah, I'm done." But that was the thing for Vontae Davis was like, "I'm retiring." This
Yeah.
was get me off this team because I'm not playing or I don't want to play for them. That's just
Yeah.
different, you
No,
know.
this was, oh, you don't wanna play me? All right, watch when you need me. I'm not playing, it's
Yeah.
it's just it's selfish, you know?
Yeah. It's
And
yeah.
and then Vontae Davis was just like, yeah, you know what? This isn't for me anymore.
Yeah.
So
And I guess my point with like towards the team is like that's just a gut shot, I think, to the rest of the team of like, wow, like playoffs on the line and we had a dude quit on us mid game. Like, what the fuck?
yeah. So I mean, did anybody have this on the bingo card of like horrible things that were gonna happen to the Niners this season? Like in a list of Super Bowl hangovers, I would say like you could argue that this was worse than their 2021. Because in 2020, like, yeah, the injuries I think were a lot more significant, and they like lost a lot of time from like their starting quarterback, and and time from like a lot of their stars, like Nick Bosa was down for the entire season after week 2. But like this year, it was like an emotional hangover as well, because it's like, I mean, just so much stuff going on outside of football, so many tragedies, and like, the players just kind of turning on each other.
Mm.
It's almost worse. And it's
A- And like visually seeing Kyle Shanahan just looking uh what would the term be? Like just not over it, but like
burnt out a
tired,
little bit.
burnt out. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Dude,
just visually you could see it.
Shanahan aged like a president, dude. Dude,
He's
like,
served two he has served 2 terms on this fucking team.
yeah, he has. And how many Super Bowls did that net us? Surely at least one, right?
Right. Well, multiple losses. That'll do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I can celebrate being a loser. No. I'm a spoiled fan. Well, I've never been spoiled in my lifetime, so I am just trying to hold on to the history that I always hear about.
Yeah.
So Joel says, because if he's just going to quit on the team, he's just taking up a roster spot. And then I do see that Jesus says, so just cut him. But the thing is, you can't do that mid game and replace him with somebody in the middle of the game. Joel, I think is talking about like if if Campbell would have just said, hey, you know what? I'm not playing. Before the game, they could have put a guy like Jalen Graham, in
Yeah.
his
They could have
place.
made him inactive instead of somebody else.
Yeah.
And then to
Some
this point, like I wonder do team suspensions cause the player to not be on the 53 or are they still and then they just have to be inactive each game?
um that's a good question that I don't know
Because
the
like
answer to.
the one like little easy to miss fact about every game is that there have to be like what 9 players or 8 players inactive every game. So even if you suspend a player and he has to count against the 53, at least you're getting one less, not less inactive player, but you're putting Devondre Campbell inactive instead of somebody else, like you know, a third or fourth string linebacker that usually wouldn't play,
Mhm.
who actually gets to have his shot.
Well, I think like the main thing is in terms of like how many players you have for game day, they for sure can, I think, fill that void.
Yeah.
But in terms of the 53-man roster, I don't know exactly how it works, but regardless, it really doesn't matter. The Niners are not going to the playoffs. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if this would matter if they were still kind of in it, but dude, like they just lost another divisional game, and they're so far back. There's only 3 games left.
Yeah.
It's over. But Jesus says Niners are going to have to overpay Greenlaw to keep him. Yep. I mean, it depends how the next couple weeks go, because if Greenlaw is like kind of injured, maybe they can get him at a little bit of a discount, you know? But if he's playing like how he did today, or I mean not today, on Thursday, then maybe they will have to overpay. But you know, they kind of underpaid him on his last contract. Like it was a very team friendly deal from my memory. But that was before he really started to like go off. But he's always been great as long as he's been on the Niners. He's always been a big playmaker, and really, I mean, if you want to think about it this way, he's kind of the Draymond Green of the 49ers, where he sets the tone defensively. Like you could actually see the difference between the defense on Thursday versus the entire season, and he's always the one who gets the personal foul penalties. You know, Draymond's the one with the technical fouls. Hey, they're both Dre. One's Draymond and the other's Dre Greenlaw. So, they both have green in their name. Draymond Green and Greenlaw. So, justice has been served. Let's see. Frank says, I can appreciate how Lynch handled the Campbell issue, but he shouldn't have had to. That problem should have never left the locker room or the sideline. Yeah. But, I mean, if the 49ers... Well, actually, I saw something today. Nick Bosa knew that Campbell was going to do this, but he didn't think that it would get this bad.
Huh.
Nick Bosa knew that this could have happened, but he decided not to speak up, is what he told reporters.
Jeez. I don't know how that happens, but all right. Hey.
Yeah, so Nick, thank you for your contribution,
Thanks, Captain.
Yeah. Bosa's very selective with his words, so really, like, maybe he had something a little bit more important to say to somebody,
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Someone decided to send the Campbell issue upstairs, and now it is everywhere. All right, here's the thing, though. It's a bad look for the team, but right now, everybody has been talking about Devondre Campbell, including us. Everybody's been talking about Devondre Campbell, and nobody is talking about the fact that the 49ers just lost a must-win game, only put up 6 points. 6? Only 2 field goals?
Yeah. I saw
a must-win game. Like,
yeah. I saw a tweet about that, like, man, Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy should be thinking they're lucky stars that Devondre Campbell got kicked out, because they would be getting clobbered right now by the media. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no, dude. Freaking... Yeah, Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy, I mean, they lost, but they won, dude. They dodged a massive criticism bullet because nobody's talking about it. Let's see. Gross Matos and Floyd are slow. I mean, they're defensive ends, but yeah, I mean, the Niners are going to have to also improve, an aggressive defensive tackle. They need to add a, D tackle and DN. Let's see. What would Walsh or Seifert or even Mooch have done? Well, those were all before my time, but let's see. Oh, God. I was just listening to Grant and his dad. I'm trying to think. I feel like they got a similar question, and yeah, I think Devondre Campbell would not have been a 49er. He wouldn't have had an opportunity to call himself a 49er still before he hit the locker room. But I there's no way I could know, with any of these coaches. I would love to ask, Seifert or Mariucci, like, what would they have done? Maybe they've already talked about it.
Yeah.
All All right. Not exceptional defense, especially again on run. I mean, they held the Rams to 12 points, like they did not
They kept
allow a single touchdown.
Yeah, for the most again, first half, they were just forcing punts left and right. And then maybe mostly in the second half, like they would allow some drives to get to the red zone and then they would stop them on third down. And that's why it was, 4 field goals to 2 field goals because the defense never gave up too much. It was just, again, what the media might have been focusing more on is the fact that the Niners couldn't score more than 6 points. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, I honestly think overall the defense was not the reason why they lost this football game. But
No.
yeah, I mean, towards the end of the game, I mean, they couldn't stop the run at the end of the game, but what more do you want them to do? They gave Brock Purdy and the offense an opportunity to have a game-winning drive. And Purdy chucks it up on 2nd and 11 and throws an interception, in the end zone. So I don't put it on the defense in this one. And then we've got ew, and bigger ew.
Oh.
He said, oh, man. Chief, I appreciate you for checking out the channel.
Get out.
But, man, God, this one hurts the most. You know what I mean? Like, it's one thing to rep your team, but it's another thing like, this is like if this was real life, it's almost like let's just say someone's in love with like, a very attractive person, and then somebody just comes in and swoops in, and gets married with that person. They're like, hey, you really messed up that one, huh? Check out my hot wife right here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could have thought of a better analogy, but man, when I think about it, it's not good. Thank you for reminding me of why I should be depressed. And yeah, there might not be a show next week. No, I'm just playing.
He's even got the rings on his profile photo.
Does he? Oh, yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I know nothing about that. Sorry, I wasn't around for hours. But yeah, congratulations on making me feel bad. Frank says, if Bosa knew, others must have known. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Which, I mean, that serves the question like, how did that not get to the coaching staff? How did that not get to unless the front office knew and it was like, well, if he does, he's going to find out what happens. But is that like, that's not, when the season's on the line, that's not acceptable,
Mm-hmm.
So it better not have gotten to the coaching staff or the front office.
Mm-hmm.
But even
shout out
players. Yeah.
Shout out to my cousin Daniel who's watching the stream. He says Kansas City bought those rings. Yeah, man.
At the very least, they used some dark voodoo magic.
Mike, have you seen the Kansas City Chiefs uniforms?
I've seen them a couple times, but I'm curious.
They're on sale on Amazon.
Oh, I think I know what you're gonna say.
Let's see.
Sam.
Yeah. Yeah, right here. They actually even come with a whistle and a flag.
Yeah, the replica. That's what this means. From
Dick's Sporting Goods. You can get
when the fans do this, the tomahawk chop, right? Is that what they do? What it really is throwing the flag.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, all right, refs aside, the Niners have plenty of chances to win that Super Bowl. I'm just, my heart can only take disappointment so much before I'm just numb to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about the 49ers versus Dolphins. How do you feel about this game, Mike? Personally, I think I still like the Niners' chances in this. Unless it rains.
Is this at Miami or at home?
It's at Miami.
Okay.
So I don't think it will rain.
Oh man, this
unless
is
it's
tough.
humid.
Yeah, I think because Shanahan knows McDaniels so well, and just considering how good the Niners defense looked this past week,
Yeah.
I'd have to imagine they'll do better against the Dolphins defense than the Rams, because the Rams, I just think the Rams are hot right now, and the Dolphins are by no means a hot team. They just lost to the Texans like 20-12 or something like that.
Dude, the Rams are really going to win the NFC West because every single other team imploded and they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Geno just got hurt for the Seahawks, so yeah, they might. And I think they might play the Rams. Yeah, they play the Rams the final week of the season, so or they play the Seahawks, whatever. Those two teams play each other. But
yeah.
Honestly, picking between the Niners and the Dolphins, it's kind of a toss-up for me. But it also sucks because neither of these teams are playing for anything at this point. Like, there's no way the Dolphins are still in the playoff hunt after losing to the Texans. At least I think it was the Texans. But I think I got to go with the Niners.
I'm going with the Niners too. And I mean, the reason why is because I really feel like the defense took a step forward and the Dolphins never, like, all right, they were horrible without Tua. And like, Tua's obviously playing again, but they never really got their rhythm this year, even when Tua came back. Like, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle never really, like, those are the bread and butter of the offense. And the Dolphins, I really feel like this year went in the direction of Jonnu Smith. And I mean, it's kind of worked for them, but like you just don't get that same offensive explosiveness. And also, I mean, there's just something off about the Dolphins. Like they look, sometimes they just look really bad against like competent teams, And I'm not saying that the 49ers are necessarily like a really good team this year, but the Niners are talented. And I feel like them, the whole Devondre Campbell situation is something that can rally the team together, for the players who do care. And so, I mean, I just don't see Shanahan as the type of coach to tank. I think he's going to try to win every single game that he ever coaches. I don't think he'll ever lose on purpose unless he has the lead in a Super Bowl in the fourth quarter. And he's got money on the other team, I guess. But yeah, man, I think that, I mean, Tua said it, I think they asked him, they asked him something in a press conference and he was already looking forward to Cabo or Mexico, for a team trip. He's mentally checked out. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Yeah, give me the 49ers. Let's take a look at our updated screen here. So, I was an idiot this past week, and I picked the 49ers. So now Mike and I are tied. And so we might finish that way if we keep having the same picks. Yeah. I feel pretty good about picking the Niners. I just think that I can't pick the Dolphins,
Yeah.
Even though it's in Miami. I mean, they could win. I think it's SF. It's probably in the Niners' best interest to lose, but maybe that would just like really bog down the morale. Like if the Niners win 2 out of their next 3, I'd say they'd probably be feeling a little bit better about the season. But overall, no matter what, it's a disappointment. Like if they win 3 out of their next 3, like that's like a little thing to look forward to for the following season. But I mean, this year is kind of it's a lost cause. So, they can only regroup and go back next year. And I guess it's not official yet. Like they aren't eliminated. So they could still be trying to hold out hope and still try for the playoffs. But I think that they know, we know. Yeah. There is one thing, one other thing I did want to say, but I'm having a Super Bowl hangover moment right now in my brain. So, yeah.